Did someone say they were looking for action-adventure games? Well, you've come to the right place. We're going to be taking a look at 11 action-adventure games that I highly recommend you check out on the PlayStation 4, and all of these games are under 20 bucks. I've been a little bit fast and loose with what I classify as action-adventure, but generally speaking, it's anything that's not a RPG, first-person shooter, puzzle game, any of those other genres. It kind of fits in, it's a kind of anything else that doesn't fit into one of those other specified genres. Now, while the games in this video are currently on sale, they are very frequently discounted down to this price. This is basically the everyday price now because they're kind of on sale every week or every other week. Which means that if you're watching this video in like 6 months time from its launch and you think it's not relevant, I guarantee you it still is. The games are still gonna be really good and they're probably gonna be even cheaper than that now. Let me know which of these games you've played in the comment section down below. Don't forget to give a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And let me know as well what other kind of games or videos you'd like to see me cover on the channel. First game is Bloodborne. This is one of my favorite games on the PlayStation 4 and I recommend this game to people all the time. Bloodborne, obviously made by From Software, making it a From Soft or a Souls-like game, being a tough as nails, third-person RPG / action adventure. It's not an RPG, it's definitely an action game. Play as a hunter, basically looks like a vampire hunter of some sort going through the town of Yharnam, slaying monsters and trying to decipher what is going on in this wacky world and wacky story. The game is tough as nails, but as far as Souls-like games go, this is actually probably one of the easier ones in the franchise, meaning it's a good place to start if you haven't played any of the previous Dark Souls games. It also has a ton of Castlevania vibes, which is why I'm a massive fan of it. Now, this one here, I guarantee you most of you have. In fact, let me know if you have this one in the comments down below. Uncharted Collection, or Uncharted Trilogy, is a collection of Uncharted 1, Drake's Fortune, Uncharted 2, A Thief's Tale of the Thieves, and Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception, I think it's called. It has all three of the first PS3 Uncharted games included in this collection. It's currently 10 bucks. It was given away for free last year, I believe, in 2020, to people for part of a play-at-home initiative. It does see this $10 price point pretty frequently. You're getting massive bang for your buck here with 3 games for 10 bucks, especially 3 games as high caliber as Uncharted. Basically your classic pulp action game. Fun adventurer game. There's no horror elements or anything in there. It's not too brutally hard unless you turn the difficulty up. Really good story, really good cinematics, and really good gameplay as well. Highly recommend these to anyone just looking for something fun and simple to play. It's kind of a classic or a staple at this point, so you really should have checked out Uncharted if you haven't already. In fact, the inverse of that question is also relevant. If you haven't played Uncharted, why haven't you played it at this point? Curious to know if there's anyone out there who hasn't experienced these games yet. One of the newer games on this list is Metro Exodus. This is currently $10.49 on the PlayStation Store. Like I said, with the discounts and things, they go on sale all the time, but I do think this is the cheapest I've ever seen this game up until this point. Basically $10.50 for Metro Exodus. Really awesome first-person post-apocalyptic game here. And the game just looks absolutely stunning when you jump in and play. It's set in Russia where there's a nuclear winter going on. There are enemies that you have to kill. There are mutant monster things that you have to kill. It's this mashup of so much stuff. It is the 3rd game in a trilogy of games. I think it's the 3rd one in a trilogy of games. But it is a lot of fun. Highly recommend checking this one out. Another collection, and this one is one of the most pricey games on this list, but I wanted to include it just because of my nostalgia for it, is the Resident Evil collection. Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6, all in one bundle pack, the triple pack. Now, these aren't necessarily the best Resident Evil game. Well, 4 and 5 are pretty good games. 6 is a bit of a hit or miss. Honestly, with new Resident Evil 7 and 8 out, do you need to go back and play these ones? I mean, no, you don't. And you can still enjoy the new ones, and the new ones are still perfectly good. But you're getting 3 games here for a pretty decent price point, and they're all relatively decent games, I would say. They're all the classic over-the-shoulder third-person shooter, third-person horror survivor, if you even want to call it that, Resident Evil games, rather than the new first-person style of game. But I figured I'd include it here because maybe some of you picked up RE8 earlier on in the year and you haven't gone back and checked these ones out. Then there's this bundle available so you can pick them all up at once. Kind of the rival to Uncharted is Tomb Raider. Shadow of the Tomb Raider Definitive Edition is the newest edition in the Tomb Raider trilogy, or the new Tomb Raider trilogy of games. And it's kind of a weird one because Uncharted was spawned out of the original Tomb Raider. They are essentially a spiritual successor to what Tomb Raider used to be back on the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2. And then this new Tomb Raider trilogy took a lot of inspiration from the Uncharted games, and this new age Tomb Raider trilogy is basically a spiritual successor to Uncharted 1, 2, and 3. So they've kind of taken inspiration from one another. They play very similarly. They have a very similar combat loop and storytelling loop as well. So if you enjoy Uncharted, you're going to enjoy Tomb Raider, just with a slightly different protagonist and a kind of different spin on the entire adventure genre. Risk of Rain 2. Risk of Rain 2, kind of a different addition to this list because it's not probably what you would classify as a AAA game. It probably fits more into that indie space. But a really solid addition in my personal opinion. You've got this sort of open world, third person, I would almost say arcade shooting style mechanic in here with this really cool sort of roguelike loop in it as well. Something a bit different if you're not looking for one of those high quality AAA games to check out. Risk of Rain 2 is really solid. There is also an original Risk of Rain, but it's a completely different style of game than this one here. I think this one is a lot better than the original. One of the surprise games that came out of 2020 was Mortal Shell, probably one of the most surprising games. It's a Souls-like game not made by FromSoft, and that isn't that weird. That's been done before. But I think this is the best Souls-like game made by a developer who's not FromSoft. This is actually an indie developed game. The quality of it is so high that you probably wouldn't even be able to tell that. You would honestly think this is made by a AAA or AA developer at the very least. These guys clearly love the Souls genre of games because they have made this absolute love letter to Dark Souls and Bloodborne in Mortal Shell. Basically the same thing. You've got this gothic horror style setting for the game to be set in, except it takes that genre and pushes it to the next level and adds a bunch of innovative elements into it as well. The whole thing with the different shells and the different stances, basically giving you a completely different way to play the game and kind of adding an additional mechanic to the game that didn't exist in the Souls games. It's a really interesting concept, and I applaud any developer who goes to that much effort to try and innovate on a genre that has kind of mostly stayed the same for the last sort of 10 years. A slightly older one now, Dead Island, and this probably is pushing action adventure a little bit. It probably fits more into the RPG, but I wanted to include it here because it includes Dead Island 1 and Dead Island 2 Riptide, or Dead Island 1.5 Riptide, I guess. These games are basically Fallout, the zombie version. They're essentially an open world game where you're on these islands. The game is nice and light and brightly lit, and the setting is really unique for a zombie game, which juxtaposes it with just how horrific the zombie apocalypse actually is. But it has a lot of mechanics very similar to the Fallout franchise, so if you enjoyed Fallout 4, Fallout 3, even New Vegas, then this is going to be up your alley. It is a last gen game though, so remember that when you're picking it up. It's probably going to feel a little bit dated for younger gamers out there. Axial Verge is a 2D Metroidvania style game that came out at the very start of the PlayStation 4 generation. This game was made by one dude, and that is super impressive. It has your backtracking elements from your classic Metroidvania backtracking elements. It's got a bunch of sci-fi stuff here from Metroid. It's got a bunch of boss battle stuff from Castlevania. It melds the two together like perfectly. It's got an awesome soundtrack. The game just plays superbly. If you like those classic Castlevania, Metroidvania style games, 2D side-scrolling action games, this is a great one to check out. As you know, I love Castlevania. I think I've already mentioned it once in this video. This game absolutely spoke to me when I played it. I played it on the PlayStation Vita, actually. That's how long ago it was that I played this game. And it worked so well on the Vita as a handheld game. Zombie Army 4 Dead War. If you haven't played a Zombie Army game, they're actually made by the same guys who make Sniper Elite. So it has a lot of mechanics in there from the Sniper Elite series of games around sniping and things like that. But the game is a 4-person squad co-op zombie shooter, essentially. Very similar to your Left 4 Dead's, Call of Duty Zombies, and the like. The series itself obviously isn't as well established as those ones, and it's probably not quite as arcadey as those games either. It's probably a little bit more serious in tone, although there is a zombie shark, so maybe not as serious in tone. The game's also played from a third-person perspective rather than a first-person perspective, which is kind of unique for a game like this. If you like your zombie games, you're looking for a co-op game to play with your friends, this is a really great option to check out. And another Souls game on the list is The Surge. This one is completely different to the rest of the Souls franchise and even to Mortal Shell, because this one is set in a futuristic setting rather than a fantasy setting. I really like it when they do something so strangely different like this and they take a game that is completely fantasy and turn it into sci-fi, and that is literally what they've done here, making it so you're fighting robots and you've kind of got augmentations and things like that. Still that classic Souls formula here. They have slightly different mechanics here around targeting different body parts and things like that. So they have innovated on that formula slightly, but kept the majority of things the same here, just changing the setting and everything. The game works really well. It's a AA developed game, so it is a little bit more budget than a Souls game, but it does play exceptionally well. Apart from Mortal Shell, I would have said The Surge is the next best Souls game. It probably was the best Souls game until Mortal Shell came out in 2020. What do you guys think of this list? Is there any games on here that you're going to be checking out? Are there any games on here that you have played and you can vouch for them as well, maybe in the comments down below? Like I said at the top, let me know which other videos you'd like to see me cover and what other games you'd like to see me cover on this channel. Leave a like if you haven't already, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Patreons for September. I want to give you a warm thank you from the bottom
of my heart. Thank you to each and every one of you for keeping all the lights on here at Platinum Trophy HQ by supporting me either via Patreon or by a channel membership below. You will see your names over here next to me if you are a Patreon or a channel member. Thank you each and every one of you. If you also want to support the channel and help keep the lights on over here, you can do that by hitting the link in the description down below and joining me on Patreon, or clicking the join button on YouTube just down below, and you get access to emotes and some other exclusive things there as well. Every single cent counts. Thank you all for the encouragement and continuing to support this channel so I can continue making great content. Thanks for all those watching, as well as all my extra special supporters.